Okay, so I'm Pastor Carrie here at Front Royal Presbyterian Church, and I am so thankful that you came out tonight just so we can talk about the shelter and hear from the community as to what is going on. Thank you. I'm going to open with prayer. Let us pray. Lord, it is you that have called us as your children. You have claimed us as your own and adopted us as heirs. And as we work out the ills of this world, we ask for your guidance and presence so that we might do right by everybody, that all people might be treated with dignity and respect, that we might in this place collaborate together and work towards a wonderful vision that looks very similar to your kingdom. Through your Son's name, amen. So I'm just going to say a few words. How this happened. Originally the thermal shelter was going to be at four different churches. They came, saw our space. It's wonderful. Ruling Elder Randy Wirtz and I were like, well, we could do it for the whole season. So we promoted it. We talked about it with the church. We had a session meeting. I would like our ruling elders that are present to please stand up. Sorry, you're getting pointed out. Just stand up. So these are our ruling elders, or part of them, and it was a unanimous vote last night. You can be seated now. Unanimous vote that night with no dissension, and we are honored to be hosting the thermal shelter. We understand that there are some concerns. So tonight, we would like to spend some time talking as neighbors, as brothers and sisters in humanity, so that we can go with our right foot forward in collaboration to work towards all the good of all people. I did write down a little handout. I'm going to ask that when you speak, you raise your hand and do not interrupt. We're going to limit comments to 3 minutes per time, and only in reference to the shelter, because that's our only topic tonight. Of course, you're going to be polite and respectful. And then let's stick to facts and not go with assumptions and rumors and gossip. If you have something that you need to have clarified, you may certainly speak to myself or Michelle. And Michelle, would you stand up? And her wonderful Nicole. Nicole? Yep. So. Oh yes, actually the thermal shelter board, please stand up. That's a good idea. Thank you, Michelle. Oh, they're all congregating together. Okay. So with that, I will hand it over to Michelle, and then I will moderate. After she speaks, we'll start with questions and comments, and I'll call on you when you raise your hand.
Good evening, and thank you so much for coming out tonight. I just want to give you a tiny little background on the thermal shelter, and then I'll take any questions or concerns that you have. We started in 2017. In the end of February and all of March of that year, that's when we opened. We started with, I think, 4 churches and just 5 people, 5 guests attended during those 5 weeks. So from then on, we had more churches join us, and we were able to move from church to church. We were only open for 14, 15 weeks until COVID hit, and then we extended up at 15th Street. We were open for 6 months, totally with an uninterrupted 6 months. And this is with a ton of community support, because we need people to bring food every day, bring dinners every night, and that is all done through community support, through church support, and that happened for 6 months straight. And then the next year we were open for 5 months. And again, community support the whole time, church support the whole time. And then we went back to 15 weeks again. So that's what we're doing this year. We're not able to be at 15th Street, and we were looking for another place to go. Unfortunately, we've outgrown a lot of our churches. They did not have the space to house 30 to 40 people a night, and that's where we were last year when we were closing. So we were looking for a space that would hold that many people, and a lot of the churches can't. So Pastor Carrie, she told you how we kind of ended up here, and it's a wonderful space for us, and it's all segregated. We have men's areas, women area, the dining room area, so it's really a great space. And we had originally thought that being so far up off the street, off of Luray, that there would be very little impact in the neighborhood. And I just didn't think that there would be a lot of people that would even know that we were here, to be honest. So we've had some people with some issues about us being there, and so we decided tonight to ask anyone to come out that had some concerns, and please voice them, and we'd love to be able to answer those.
So if you'll stand up here with me, does anybody want to begin with a question or a comment? And just raise your hand and I'll pretend like I know your name. Fred, George, Sally. Anybody? Nobody wants to say anything.
Yeah,
I know.
So I can continue talking.
Anybody want to comment, respond? Okay. Yes, please. Yes.
I'm Susan. I am a member, well, I come to this church. I'm a member of a church in Manassas. But I could have introduced myself later. Now I can't remember. Oh, so I don't know anything about this whole process. I know that a van goes and picks people up and brings them here. Do they disperse themselves in the morning? Are they given a ride to go somewhere? Is it open 24/7? I just don't know anything about the logistics of how it's run.
Thank you. Good question. So we're open at 6 p.m. every night, and we close at 7 a.m. every morning. At about 5:30, we go down to the shelter behind the gazebo, and we pick up a lot of our folks just wait there, and we pick them up in our van and bring them back here. At 7 a.m., we do the same thing. We take those people back to the gazebo area, and they pretty much disperse from there. I've driven by at 8, and there's nobody around. So that's how we move them back into town, and then they go on their way. On Saturday mornings, we take them to do laundry. So we do all of our laundry, and we have our wonderful volunteers here that help us do all of our bedding. And then we do the guests can do their laundry too. So we might leave a little bit later on Saturdays before 7:30, but and take them to do laundry. And then they disperse from there. So we don't bring them back. When it's bad weather, if it's snowing or freezing rain or freezing cold, we try to stay open those days and let our guests stay inside so they're not out in the elements. Because when it's snowing, a lot of places are closed. A lot of places close down. They don't want the traffic out there.
And when guests are brought in, they do have a process where they're received, they're checked in, their bags are taken and locked up, they are patted down, and they don't leave until the next morning unless they check out.
Right. And if they check out, they can't come back that night. So if they leave, if they go out at midnight and say, you know what, I'm going to take off for a little while and come back at 1, no, they can't do that. They leave for the night, then come back the next night. So.
Questions, comments? If we get a positive, negative, we're going to try and go back and forth. Who? Yes, your name? Tom, right? Is that Tom?
No. What was the rationale for closing the 15th Street location and whatever plans that were to move the thermal program to Riverton? What happened to that? Seemed the process was in place and then it fell apart.
The question was, why did they leave the 15th Street? The discussion was that they were to be at Riverton, and Tom is asking the background of that, correct? Okay.
So the reason we left 15th Street was because of the area that we were in, which was the old cafeteria when it was the middle school, has always been slated to be the new senior center. And so the county started with the renovations for it to be the senior center. And I believe they're moving in, I read in the paper a while back that they're moving in June of this year. I think it's going to be ready, something like that. So that's what the space was always designated for. And that's what they went through the renovation. So we weren't able to be there anymore. And there isn't any other space at 15th Street that we could move into for that long of a period. I don't know where the Riverton, we've never, ever had talks to move into Riverton. At least I never have.
There was a building that was in the prospect, but
It was, yeah, I mean, I don't think it was never,
it was, yeah,
it
hopeful,
was
but
ever something. Yeah, the shower trailer's at Riverton, but we never had any serious discussions about being at Riverton.
permanently.
Yeah. Though, if they would like us. we-
Does anybody have any other, I'm gonna go back to Tom unless somebody has another question. Tom?
Just to follow up from that, there was an investment made.
Can you take your mask off, please? Sorry.
There was an investment made under the good offices of the Wednesday group to put in showers so that people could go outside and take a shower. What happened to the money in that investment?
So the shower trailer, so churches donated to that shower trailer. And there might have been some others, but I know mostly churches donated to that. And the shower trailer was built. And it's functional at Riverton. It was not easy to bring it here and hook it up here just where we're located back here in the back. So it was just easier to leave it at Riverton. So we're looking at now trying to figure out what we can do to make it a winterized, that we can use it during the winter and not worry about freezing.
But there was a reason that the Riverton Church didn't want a shelter there, apparently because there was some perceived burden by having another institution that doesn't need to be fed.
I don't know anything about
That needs to be a conversation with Riverton, and we don't have answers to that, and we don't know facts, so I'd please refer you to speak to Riverton regarding that. Would you, Michelle?
Yeah,
Agree with that?
I don't know anything about that. I've never talked to Pastor Mark about any.
If they collected funds for the shower trailer, then wherever checks were written, that's where you need to kind of look for that
So
information.
that money was all put towards the shower trailer and that was built. And it's done. The money has been paid to the person who made it and that's a done deal.
Thank you, Tom. Questions, concerns, comments? Yes, Debbie, please.
Michelle, were you invited back? I'm sorry. I'd rather not say my name and all that, because I'm probably the only person in the room that's sort of upset about this.
I'm glad you're here.
Were you invited back to the 15th Street location?
I don't understand the need for this year? No. It's under renovation. They ripped out the bathrooms, so there was no.
Were there any problems when you were there last year?
Michelle, if I could,
Wait, let's,
I'm John Marson, Director of Social Services here in Warren County.
okay.
We were not invited back to 15th Street, and matter of fact, we were told very clearly that you were no longer welcome at 15th Street.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Deb. She who must not be named. Harry Potter reference. Other questions, comments, concerns, thoughts? Well, Callum has a thought. Anybody else? Yeah.
I just have a question, just the logistics of how all this works. I've not ever helped with a thermal shelter. What do the residents or the guests do when they're there? Are there people from social services or from hosting churches who stay the night? Do they play games? Do they read books? Are there things for them to do while they're there? Are there any educational opportunities and things to help them to address their needs long-term?
Yeah. So the question is, what are they doing there? Do they have long-term plans? Are they supervised? Is that basically what you were asking? Yes. Okay. Michelle?
Yes. So, yes, to all of those are a yes. There's social services. I'm with social services. Nicole is with social services. So we're there a few nights a week each. At social services, we have a job developer. We refer our guests to them, those that want to work or looking for jobs. She has been working with those people that are looking for work. We have games, we have cards, we have puzzles, we have books, we have movies, so they can do any of those things in the evening. So you have to remember, all this is at night, so there's a lot, there's not a whole lot you can do overnight. But they are given a hot meal, and then in the evenings there are church people that are there that will come in and play cards with them, play games with them, watch movies with them. There are volunteers that do that. And then we have paid staff. So the thermal shelter has 2 paid staff. We have 2 shifts, a 6 p.m. to midnight and midnight to 7:30. And we have 2 paid people covering both of those shifts. So they're there all the time. There's usually at least 1 board member there in the evenings, and then there are volunteers that are there every evening to help serve, to help with check-in, with various things. So.
And then the volunteers don't stay overnight, they go
Right.
home and sleep in their own comfy
Right.
beds that they're fortunate to have, okay?
Correct. And but they have 2 paid staff at all times
Right.
on site.
So one of the things that COVID did was that no one wanted to spend the night. During COVID, no one wanted to stay. People would bring food and leave it, but no one, the volunteers it was really hard to come by. So we ended up adding another staff member, because we used to have 1 paid staff and 1 volunteer overnight. And then during COVID, we added another paid person to that overnight shift. And so we had 2 for each shift.
And they are very clear with, they only take smoke breaks as a group at 7, 8, and 9:50. And then they're not, other than those times for smoke breaks, they don't go outside. That's my understanding, correct, Michelle?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Peggy? Oh, I'm sorry. Peggy?
I was just wondering, is this something long-term, like the people can learn, get help, like filling out applications for jobs and things like that, or skills for that, or that they can come, 2 nights in a row or 3 nights in a row, something like that?
So, yeah, they can come every night. Some people are there the whole season. Some people are there 1 night or 2 nights. It just depends on that person's situation. But yeah, we help them. We help them, apply for the programs that we have at Social Services. We help them get IDs if they don't have an ID and you need an ID to get a job. We help them get their birth certificates that you need to get an ID to get a job. So we try to help them we pay for them through a ministerial fund that we have at Social Services, and to help get them what they need in order to move forward.
And Michelle has shared many success stories with me of people that are in the homeless shelter that are now getting into their first apartment or have found a job. So there are many success stories that I'm sure she'd be happy to share with you if you'd like to hear them.
So yeah, we serve people that are 18 to 80. So it's not just a bunch of young people out there that don't want to get a job. We have a lot of elderly people that we house. People that can't make it on their Social Security or their disability, and so they are staying in a shelter. We've had an 80-year-old woman there. We have people in their 70s there, in their 60s that are disabled, and I mean, you can see that they're disabled. They're walking with walkers. They have canes. So those are the majority, really, of the people that we serve. We do have some younger people that maybe have some mental health issues or addiction issues. We have helped people get into rehab. We have one gentleman that got into rehab a couple years ago, and he's been alcohol-free. He's housed. He's great. He helps in our homeless community, and he's just, his whole life has changed. And so we've done that with several people over the years that helped to get them into rehab. So, when they're out and they're scattered around and they're living in tents and you don't have your eyes on them, it's hard to help them. When you see them every night and you get to know them and then they understand that people care about them. There's a whole group of people there that care about them and that love them and that want them to do well and to be housed. And we work with Centralized Intake, which is down in Woodstock, and they cover Warren County, and they help people get into apartments and help them with their deposits. And so we have lots of resources. I mean, we have the resources that are available to us here in our area to help connect them, to make it further and to be housed and to be, addiction-free if that's their issue. We help them get into Northwestern if it's mental health and they don't have the mental health support. We help them get into that. So without us seeing them and being around them and knowing what their needs are, we wouldn't be able to help connect them with all the different resources.
Does that answer,
So-
Peggy? Yes? Yes.
My name is Dave Bryant, and I'm going to speak on behalf of the shelter, but as a retired 36-year first responder, I know that's what draws most attention. You see the lights, blue lights, red lights, it doesn't matter. You want to know what's going on. Your first thought is something bad's going on. Not always. I mean, these people have medical conditions just like anybody in this room, and they have to be served. We try to handle it in-house. If I'm here, I try to de-escalate if possible. If we need to call EMS, we call EMS. The emergency service, as far as the fire and rescue, has a protocol to follow as far as dispatching. The police department as well. And I don't know what their rules or their procedures are, but I know from working in my jurisdiction, if you had a call that was a high-profile call, okay, we haven't had any of these here. We haven't had nobody get murdered. We haven't had no shootings or stabbings or any of that stuff like that. But if you get anybody mentions anything about violence or drug overdose or CPR, you're going to get both agencies. You're going to get police, sheriff, fire. Okay? That is to give, sometimes it's crowd control because everybody wants to know what's going on. So sometimes the police has to be asked to keep everybody back so we can do our job. Okay? That happens. But, as I said, they are humans just like we all are. They all have medical. So if you see lights over here, it's not always, don't always think the worst situation. They could be a diabetic and just need some sugar. We had a diabetic last year. All we had to do was give him sugar. If we couldn't get it up, he'd have to go to the hospital. You'd have to call EMS. We don't run a taxi service to the hospital. Although, if they can walk and talk, and I'm here, I will gladly take them so that they don't deny a person who has an emergency situation that service. I try to discourage that if at all possible, but I'm not the ultimate healer and I can't do everything. But if you see the lights flashing, don't always think the worst. It could be something. Last year at the 15th Street School, we had a gentleman who did pass away.
I'm going to ask you to go ahead and finish if you don't.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So we can have 3 minutes.
I'm sorry.
Please
Okay.
finish. If you have anything else you'd like to
I would just like to say that we did have a gentleman who passed away. You had fire, you had sheriff, and you had the police department. And so you have multiple agencies coming to the aid. They have the capabilities to help as well. So naturally, they're going to show up and try to help. That was my job for 36 years, and that's what I do. And that's why I'm here, to help.
I appreciate you.
Okay.
I don't think we were for cutting you off. I just want to make sure everybody has a chance to speak. So we've heard somebody in support of the shelter. I'd like to ask if anybody would like to speak as their experience is different than was just shared. Anybody want to speak on the opposite side?
I guess I'll go ahead. I'll be honest, I didn't know there would be a reporter with a video and everything here. I would really prefer not to be,
She does not want to be recorded in
Facebook or something like that.
So please don't record her.
I don't really particularly like
Yep,
to be
thank you.
in public anyway. My name is Debbie McIntyre Hunter. I've been a member of this church since 1987. My parents were Ben and Jean Lacey. They were at the hospital in New Bedford. Anyhow, it has been a very frightening experience for me. And I'm a person who gives a lot. I've been on session here for 6 years. My family, Green Woman community for being volunteers. Being critical of being volunteer. Just tell me like this. One of my closest friends is 103. She lives 2 houses from me. The first night in the shelter opened, she got a knock from one of the shelter. She was scared to death, and she still is. I have friends who are also single, that have daughters. I have neighbors up on Grand Avenue that have young children. Some are police. And to me, I think it's a wonderful thing that you're doing. I want to help people. You know, I grew up in a household where my dad passed away when I was 8 years old. My mom had to raise 3 children herself. So I understand compassion, I understand all these things. But I do not feel that this is in an appropriate location. It has been frightening, and it is, you know, I've got all the police reports. It's been numerous times. And usually it happens, volunteers for contact, and so forth. So I didn't think you would be there. But anyhow, having been a member of this church for a really long time, my hope is that in the future, the county or the social services or whoever it is in charge of this will find a better location. Manchester serves 20 churches. They do it for 1 week. They don't keep people for 3.5 months. Fredericksburg has a program, and people are required to be on the bus. Here, at the beginning of this thing, people were all down at gazebo. No one was checking to see if they were wrong or anything else. So you have full-blown drunks, just tell me what it is.
That's
That have come and have caused problems. And when they get out on the street, my neighborhood is scary. The most frightening night of my life was several weeks ago when I was on my couch watching television, and I heard a man screaming for 45 minutes about how upset he was. I finally found out from Michelle that what he's upset about is he's been turned away from the shelter. So he'd like to be here, but he can't. So anyway.
I'm gonna,
You're done 3 times.
yeah, I'm sorry, but I appreciate your voice. I appreciate you coming, and yours is a firsthand knowledge, and that is what we want to talk about. That's what we want to make sure, is that our entire community feels safe and loved and cared for. So would somebody like to speak on behalf of the thermal shelter? Yes, please.
My name is Scott Jenkins. My wife Lisa and I had an opportunity in December to help serve dinner one night. And it was our first exposure to the thermal shelter. But what we found was a real community of people who know each other and support each other. And I was very impressed with how the facility is managed. The people there are checked in, they're supervised, their needs are met, and they're cared for. And I think that's what we're all called to do.
Thank you. I, again, admire those who are standing up with their voice, and I am happy to share some of the other neighbors' conversations that they've had with me. If somebody else would like to speak on behalf of the neighbors, and thinking this is not the appropriate place, this is your time. We're going to go positive and negative so we can balance things out. Would anybody else like to speak? Yes.
I'll speak as a neighbor. My name is Rachel Plemons, and I'm the pastor at Front Royal UMC, and I live in the parsonage that is on the other side of the parking lot here on Sherwood Avenue. And I'm delighted that the shelter is here. I can definitely understand the concerns that some folks have. It's scary when there are people you don't know. But I also know that these are people who are also looking for a home. And sometimes we have to step outside our comfort zones and love our neighbors as God calls us to do. And so I have not had the same noise complaints. I don't know, maybe my house is better insulated or something. I don't know. But I have not heard noises like that. Very rarely have I heard those kind of noises. I've not had any problems with anybody coming lost or confused or anything like that. That's not to say it didn't happen, it just didn't happen to me. But I think it's wonderful that it's here, and I hope we can be here multiple years. So, thank you.
Would somebody like to speak on behalf of the shelter? Valerie?
Hi, my name's Valerie Hayes. I'm the rector of Calvary Episcopal Church. Before the pandemic, yes, the thermal shelter program moved from church to church throughout the community. And when the pandemic happened, that was not a safe alternative for any of us, for our people in our churches or our volunteers. We didn't have space to social distance. We didn't have the capacity to care for a very at-risk population. And so during that time, it shifted to county facilities. And then as you heard today, this year, that county facility was unavailable to host the thermal shelter. There's a bigger overarching question to what is happening. Is that our county and town have no permanent homeless shelter. We have no shelter, separate shelter for women and children. You don't normally house homeless men with women and children. This thermal shelter is known as a low barrier or no barrier shelter. Anyone who comes who's in need of shelter can stay. In contrast, House of Hope is a high barrier shelter. For homeless men to be at House of Hope, they have to sign up for their program, they have to be sober and clean, they have to have a job within a certain time frame, they have to let House of Hope manage their money, they have specific goals. That's not what this is. So the larger question is, how do we talk to our county representatives, our town representatives, to look at the need for homeless shelter and women's shelter in our community. As you heard, many of these people, they're old and they have limited income and they may have lost a house. They may not have the health care they need. They have underlying health concerns that don't allow them to work. Some may have very well addiction issues. An addiction issue by its very nature is something they have no control over. There are many people in our community who have mental health issues. And the mental health services in our community, I will say, are very poor. Not for want of our county providing everything they can. And I know this where there's a consortium of churches and Rotary and other organizations. We provide a hot meal Monday through Thursday at the First Baptist Church. And we have regular folks there too. And many of them are the working poor. They are the elderly on a fixed income. Usually this time of year when the shelter's open, we see few of our homeless clients. But I will tell you that in the height of the pandemic, there were so many services and resources available. We serve between 30 and 40. We're serving up to 70 a night. So that increase, we're almost doubling because of the economy. Some of you serve a Backpack Buddies program to our local schools. Last year we served Ressie Jeffries. Last year we were serving about 100 students and families.
Let's
Yeah.
consolidate
So what I'm
this
saying is
thermal shelter.
there's an overarching need to support people who are at risk on the margins, have food insecurity, are homeless, or on the margins of being homeless.
And
So
that's-
there's a bigger issue for a longer conversation, not tonight.
Thank you, Valerie.
Would anybody like to speak as a neighbor? In full transparency, I hope that you will give me the privilege of speaking, not as a neighbor, but as someone who has heard from neighbors, because I feel like we should be aware of what is being said in the community. Some of it is such as, I don't feel safe leaving my house after dark or walking my dog. They have noise. Trying to think what else. So there is concern in neighbors. I can also tell you that they're not comfortable coming to speak because they don't want to be villainized or victim. You know, it's an uneasy feeling because they're good people too, but they're in a difficult spot. So I want you to know that there are people that love the church and the community, but have valid concerns. Any other comments regarding that? Yes, I would love for you to speak.
Position of neutrality.
Yes,
Or against. Hello, everybody. My name is Cam Gales. I'm the Front Royal Police Chief. So we've been dealing with this situation for a while. Last year we had some challenges at the 15th Street location. And look, I mean, we're talking about the homeless community. And brass tacks, there's always going to be some mental illness issues. There's always going to be some substance use issues. That's part of why some of that population is homeless, because they're incapable of managing those greater needs. So you're always going to have some of those issues. One of the things that I have recognized, and I've talked with Michelle at great length over the past couple of years, and my hat's off to the staff and the board. This year, from our standpoint, has gone much smoother, quite frankly, than it did last year. I think there's a better working relationship. We've really tried to address some of the problems before they become problems. For instance, the drop-off point. When I found out that the pickup drop-off point was going to be the town commons that I'm responsible for taking care of, I was like, awesome, that's great. What could go wrong? So, we started actually, and having the conversation, we started kind of aggressively enforcing some of the rules and regulations there, which kept some of the problems from showing up here. So we've really tried to be proactive in working with the shelter staff and trying to minimize the impact on the community, but make sure that the program didn't suffer for it. Because, unfortunately, this is a service that we as a community need. We can always argue about where it needs to be, and I don't think that's a conversation that will probably never be completely resolved from both ends of it. But this year has been fantastic for us as far as the relationship. I think we've had, in full transparency, I read the numbers earlier today, we've had 20 calls for service in the area. 16 of them were actually related to the shelter, and not all of those were crimes or people getting locked up or things. Some of them were, like David said, they were EMS calls. Some of them were just, suspicious calls, but there was staff outside with flashlights picking up the garbage or whatever. But there are legitimately, use your words, Gail, legitimately some calls for service as well. We did have some intoxicated people that we had to take care of, and we made sure they were housed. They had they were taken care of for the evening. So that's something that we've had to overcome, because a lot of the folks that come here, again, you've got a population of 30 or 40 people that are being served by this organization, and law of averages, we all know there's a small percentage that cause most of those problems. And in working with the shelter, they've been pretty good about kind of standing on their policies and procedures and saying, okay, well, listen, every time you come here, you're a problem. I'm sorry, not welcome here anymore. And I think that's helped significantly. We're not, trust me, last year it was day after day, and it was the same people. And we're not experiencing that this year. So a lot of times when we're coming here, again, you're always going to have some substance use issues. When we talked about mental illness, there's always going to be people in crisis in those types of situations. So we'll be providing assistance with that and getting them the help they need with the hospital and Northwestern Community Services. So that's been our experience thus far this year. Again, it's not perfect, but it's getting better, I think. So where it lands, I guess we'll see. But that's been my experience thus far, and if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I appreciate that. Can I just clarify a few things? You said 20 calls and then 16 for the shelter. Is that since it opened?
Yes,
Okay.
since December 17th.
Okay, so since December 17th. And my next question, just trying to clarify what you were saying. Actually, okay, that was my one. Would anybody have questions for our, and plus I didn't give you a timer because I didn't want to get in trouble. You got guns, I got God, you know. Anybody have any questions for the police department? Yes?
Has there been any discussion about providing security personnel at the shelter?
Has there been any discussion about security personnel? Is the question.
So we don't provide private security. We're the police.
Okay, but within the shelter then, have
We never had a security, we never had the money to, we barely.
I figured,
We just kind of skate through on what we get every year, so we've never had the money to hire security people, you know, to be with us the whole time we're open every night. That's like 7 days a week for 15 weeks. That's a lot of hours.
Following up on that question, and that's an excellent one, but by Michelle, I know I've got some thermal shelter staff here and with you. Do you feel in any way, even if it's 5%, that you feel the need for security personnel?
I personally, I'm not gonna speak for anybody
Right.
else, but I see their heads are shaking. No, I've never, ever felt the need for security. I'm there. I mean, most of us are there a lot. And, you know, we work with the homeless by day, during the summer, you know, I've never, ever felt unsafe, personally. So.
Yes.
Okay, Anita Bryant. I'm a board member of the Thermal Shelter. I've been involved since the very get-go, the first year we opened, Marlow Heights Baptist Church. What I would say to the folks that are scared or frightened of having the thermal shelter in your backyard, that's what we have, it's not in my backyard, is come on Sunday night or Tuesday night. David and I are there. We will gladly be your chaperone for that night and protect you if you feel that you need that. You don't. We are not afraid of any of our thermal shelter guests. We respect them and they respect us. And again, I invite you to come down. Church, come down. Please don't come the same night. But yeah, you and your wife came down and you got to see it firsthand what it was like. And it's not scary, Debbie, it's not scary. It is because you don't know the people. You haven't come in. So I encourage you to come in. Come into the shelter. I will gladly be your escort the whole time. David is there. We love these guys and gals, and they're not there to hurt us. They are most happy that we are helping them, and we are a family together. So thank you.
Did you want to speak?
I just wanted to say that, as I said before, a lot of these incidents have happened after volunteers have left. I'm a very brilliant person. Lots of my neighbors are too. You're calling me. I'm kind of like your little mother. And I know you've had a visitor about this, sir. And a lot of the things that we hear are scary. They get out when they're drunk and they don't sound normal at all. And we don't know what's going to happen next. Look what just happened in Chesapeake at Walmart. And look at the liability involved. I'm just saying, you know, I'm not making it up. This is what I hear, and I appreciate your offering for me to come over and visit. But I don't think it'll take away from here.
Thank you, and I don't think anybody thinks you're making anything up. I don't think that you, I don't, and I hope everybody else respects her voice as well. Sally?
I just want to say, it doesn't sound like it's an issue of the people that are inside the shelter. Because you said there's only 3 designated times that they have smoke breaks, where they would be outside of the shelter. This sounds like these are people that didn't make it into the shelter for the night.
Well, the one was one.
Let's let her finish, and then we can speak. Let's one at a time.
So is there there an issue where somebody is not allowed into the shelter, where they might be then possibly wandering around the grounds of the church area, where then you would be hearing them yelling, and would that be an issue where maybe we could ask our friendly police department, maybe extra patrols?
We usually take care of them.
You know, that might be a solution, because it doesn't sound like it's an issue once they're in the shelter. And we need to be,
Let's let her finish, just so, because I don't want to interrupt.
as a Matthew 25 church, when we have the availability, if we want to claim and continue to be a Matthew 25 church, I think we owe it to our neighbors, our brothers and sisters, to offer the housing. But if it's an issue of people that are outside of the shelter, then we need to seek a solution for that problem. That's
Well said. I know that do you want to stand and speak?
Sure. This is
I'll
not
be back.
happening anymore, but for several nights, there were two men that slept on the bench in front of the church all night. No supervision, no nothing. I called the police, they came and they checked on them, and then they left. Which was okay. But that's not happening anymore, but that was not funny. So, just want you to know.
Thank you. Did you want to speak?
Okay, there's a couple of things I'd like to clear. First, I'd like to clarify one thing, is that we are not run by the county, by the town, by social services. That is not who runs the thermal shelter. It's its own entity. It is not in any way, shape, or form part of the government here, okay? It's a separate little nonprofit that developed because there wasn't anything here. So the only thing that we have with social services, because of my job with social services, has been, that's the connection, as I work by day for social services, and we have a very accepting director of, of the thermal shelter and what we do, and we offer, you know, of course, the services that we offer benefit the people in the thermal shelter also. So, but we're a separate entity. And in regards to the people that have made noises outside or caused issues outside, yes, very aware of them. We have taken, you know, we hear the neighbors, we understand their concerns. We have not been lenient at all in the people that are creating issues. So if you come in and you cannot behave because you're drunk and you're loud and you're, you know, usually it's just drunk and loud. But, you know, we'll give you, you know, one time, okay, you need to come in and be quiet and go to sleep and not make a lot of noise, not be going around the surrounding areas and creating noise. So we have several people now that are no longer welcome at the shelter because of their behavior. And it's unfortunate, you know, we don't want to have people not be able to come in, but they have poor behavior when they are drinking. And some of them just, you know, might be a mental health issue or whatever, but if they cannot keep themselves together enough to come in and just, you know, sit down and eat and go to sleep, if they're going to create issues and be loud and sleep on benches and do that kind of thing, when they're not allowed to do it, that is part of our rules, then they're no longer allowed. So a lot of those issues, if you've noticed them in the past, we haven't seen them lately, it's because those people are no longer allowed on the premises. And we make sure they're not allowed on the premises. So it's an unfortunate thing and we hate to do it, but we understand our neighbors, and so it's not just us, it's everybody around us that is affected. So
I also want to speak, just back up that I'm lucky to be the pastor of this church. I'm also love the neighborhood and the neighbors, and they are very aware and they share with me when things happen that are disturbing, which I am thankful for. And I always immediately used to go to Michelle, and then I realized she's a volunteer and she doesn't get paid to deal with me. So then I get the shelter staff, they get paid piddling, but they put up with me. And every time a complaint has come that is valid, Michelle and the shelter have taken care of it within the hour, sometimes even quicker. They have been very cooperative with it. And to the point where they actually text me, the shelter, when a police car is coming or EMS or something is happening, so that I'm aware, so that if the neighbors text or call me, I can then be on the front and explain what's happening and take away that unknown. Just wanted you to be aware of that. Would anybody like to speak? Yes, Usi. Oh, then I'll come to you. Usi?
Okay. My name is Usi Mix, and I am an elder at this church, and I just want to say that I'm so upset. But if I were a neighbor, I think I would be afraid too, especially because my husband is deployed. I have 3 young kids. But at the same time, I would like to think if something happened to me and that were my mother or my father who was at that shelter, you know, sorry, I'm like so jumbled. This could happen to anybody. And if you weren't here and your mother or father were in that shelter, how would you feel about people trying to just, I don't want to say sweep it under the rug, but just kind of not see them? They deserve to be seen and to be treated with dignity and to have humanity. And I'm not saying to put anybody to shame because we're all human, but this really could happen to anybody. And I can guarantee that somebody here has a mental illness, and that could be depression, that could be some form of anxiety, that could be bipolar schizophrenia or something. And what separates us from them, to me, is that we have a home and they don't. And I feel like they're villainized, and they're not. I'm not very good at speaking, I just would like people just to think, when you start to have a negative thought, just think, try to think positively and try to think of the opposite and try to empathize and have some compassion. And I think everybody would be fearful. I think that's normal. Anyway, sorry, that's just what I just wanted to say.
Thank you, Usi, and you'll be teaching on Sunday.
No pressure.
I saw another hand.
Hi, I'm Kathy Bauer. I am both a neighbor of the shelter and I own 2 residents that the backyard abuts the parking lot here of the church. And I have not personally had any issues, and I have not heard from any of the people that live in my 2 residents that they have had any issues. One thing I would like to have you address, if you could, is the cost of running and maintaining the shelter. I'd like to have that information.
She said that, I just want to make sure everybody hears that she said that she owns property, 2 residences, and a home that's a neighbor right here in the community. And she has not had any issues, and her 2 rental properties, no issues, correct?
I haven't had any complaints from
No complaints. And now she is asking for cost and finances, and I'll give that to Michelle.
So it's about $2,500 to $2,800 a week to run the shelter. And that's payroll, 90% of it, that's payroll. We started off paying $10 an hour, and then everybody started paying more money, so we had to up it. So, but you're paying 4 people, 7 days a week, 15 weeks. That's a big chunk of money. And then we have insurance, so we have liability insurance, we have a van that, obviously that's insured, and running it, the van is very, very old, has lots of repairs that are needed every year, so we're paying for that. So there's also other, costs in there, but it's about $2,500, $2,800 a week for that.
funds to support that?
Yeah, we usually just, every year we have, and when we had COVID, we had COVID money, so the federal government, we had grants to support us because 6 months, we were out of money at the end of our 15 weeks, and then grant money kicked in for that because they wanted everybody housed. You know, they had lots of money out there for low barrier shelters. So we were able to get grants and stay open the extended times that we were. But every year we've had money to make it through our years, and this year we have money to make it through this year. So, yeah.
But that doesn't mean you don't have to write a check when you leave. It's a minimum of $10 here.
Gary, can I pass it, please?
Yes. Is there anybody that would like to respond to budget or that we're still on that neighbor conversation? Yes.
My name is Reed Howard, and one of the things that really strikes me is that our churches are getting smaller, and I'm now on what you all would call church council, Calvary Episcopal. And so I wondered, Michelle, whether it would be a good idea for us to work together to encourage the county to set up a grant program for this effort and for other efforts that might help address the distinctive issues facing seniors, facing the mentally ill, facing young people who perhaps have substance abuse problems. Perhaps there are ways that we could work together. And yes, I think every single person here is very kind and very committed. And I just wondered if, from your standpoint, if there's a way that perhaps we could harness the goodwill and encourage the county at large to dedicate dollars, because it's not just our problem or the church's problem, it's a problem for the whole community. So I'd just like to raise that, and perhaps one of the things we can do is go to the Board of Supervisors and say, you know what? We're all neighbors. We need help, and we can help through our tax dollars.
I nominate you to head that. Second that?
I second it.
Thank you. And I think that is absolutely a wonderful thing, and your voice matters when you vote, when you choose who is on the county and town boards. It matters. It does. So thank you for bringing that up. Yes?
I'd just like to say, I volunteer. I'm Lewis Moten. I volunteer sometimes at the shelter. I've not been around to see the activity after I've left. But I have seen Michelle and other people read the notes. They have a very extensive list of rules, and it's not always the same. In fact, there was even somebody who slept on the church grounds that I was there when they started telling people not to sleep on the grounds and to vacate. I'm just saying, they are hearing what other people are hearing. It's not like they're being sheltered from the issues. Everybody knows that if things mess up, everybody doesn't have a place to stay. So they are just as concerned as a group of people there. They're in their community, they're in our community. And we don't want them to lose their place, they don't want to lose their place. So they're people, that's all I'm trying to say.
Well, thank you. So the gist of that is we're all people and we're all neighbors. Anybody else? Tom?
I don't live in this community, and I honor the security issues that people raise in the community. I ran a program for the homeless in Washington, D.C. for 9 years and 4 months. And it was on the campus of one of the best high schools in the area. And some of the parents felt, well, send my kid to school and maybe they'll get hassled by a homeless person. Well, I was there for some time. We had one such incident, which the school dealt with very passionately. I am concerned, I'm sensitive also to some of the things where we attribute certain things to people that are in crisis that are not, if we get to know them better. If this person's it's a homeless person, but if you know the name, this is John. What are John's problems? How can we address that? But I must say, we did have security. We had on-site security with the high school staff, and they could address problems. And there are problems. There's no question about that. You know, people are homeless, have issues. But I think maybe if the police and others maybe say, well, in this case, we don't need to take a period of time where we go over there and deal with it. But then maybe could find a way to have on-site security that would nip problems in the bud before they get past that point. Maybe that's a worthy thing for the county and the town to invest in, because as Rhea and others have said, it's not only the church's problem, it's the community's problem. After all, if a person can't stay here, where are they going to stay? Where will they go? And will that inconvenience the whole town? So I think those, like I said, I only can make observations, but I've learned that some of the things you do with homeless people are the most gratifying things you'll ever do.
Can I just add one comment to that? Yes. Mentors. Mentors we need in the shelter, especially mentors that are godly men that can talk with these men. Women need mentors too, and that's why I'm there, and why some of our other folks are there. So it's very satisfying to come and make a difference in people's lives. So please come in the shelter and mentor and be a part of their life. Make them feel like they are important, like they matter. They do.
Thank you, Anita. To follow up on that, I agree. And Tom, I hear your voice. My response would be that that is a valid point. They don't have the funds to provide on-site security, nor do they feel like they need that, but it would ease the minds of some of our neighbors. So it is something to look into. I will follow up on yours by saying that once my members went up to play cards, hang out, eat dinner, they're like, oh, I saw so-and-so at Martin's. I'm like, they have a name. You saw them every day before, but you got to say hi, and it must be so nice to not be invisible. Comments, questions, concerns?
I'd like to speak.
Yes, please.
My name is Sherry Sears. I don't live in town. But what I do is I've made friends with 12 to 14 of the homeless. I park at the gazebo every day and I run. I run 5 miles. And every day, even pre-COVID, especially during COVID, there wasn't stuff open. So Scotty, JJ, Joelle, Teresa, Sandy, her little dog, all these people have become my friends. I have small children. They're girls. They walk down by the gazebo with their high school friends and get ice cream. And they call him their Uncle JJ. JJ would say, y'all two need to go on. Your mama said get home. Like he would send them home. But the difference is JJ no longer looked at me as the running lady. JJ was excited to come tell me he got a job. Now he lives at the hotel. His diabetes and stuff is under control. Like, these are people. And honestly, we're 2 paychecks away from being in their position. If you look in your wallet, you're 2 paychecks away. I'm retired military. TRICARE all of a sudden is charging me. So now where I didn't have insurance to pay, I do now. So things are hard. So I am not saying JJ didn't scare the dickens out of me one morning when he lost his mind. They do have mental incapacities. Our community's short. It's short for our children in the schools for mental health help. It is short for our homeless community. So we can, it's not gonna be easy. Nothing in life is easy, but you've got to just try. Try your best, and it is, some days it's scary. It is, I'm a single female running, but I've told them over and over, I match their crazy. And they get it. Yeah, Teresa gets it.
We probably all do.
Yeah, Teresa's 70+ days clean from being an alcoholic. I mean, there's some amazing stories, and it is fearful. So I just do say, open your heart the best you can. And they do. They are people. Crystal, they all have names. And just like Joelle, you look at her, she likes Oreos. Buy her some Oreos. She'll leave you alone. It's that simple. So that's all I have to say about my friends.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak? Going once? Going twice? Yes, Peggy.
Carrie, I want to know if it's going to be safe for me because I can't hear and because I'm physically handicapped. And I want to go and I want to help and participate, but at the same time, I have to be safe. I have to know that, I'm not going to get hurt.
And that's a good question. I'm gonna try and sign, I'm not very good at it. Ask me, and I'll go with you. How's that? I'm happy to do that. Happy to. Anybody else? Yes, Nicole.
Okay, public speaking is not my thing, so just bear with me if I say lots of ums. So I recently joined the board about a couple months ago. Prior to that, I volunteered last season at the thermal shelter for the very first time. Prior to that, I had a mentality that these people I see sitting on buckets on the street are scary individuals, and that, they don't need money, they can go get jobs, and they can work just as hard as I can. But then when I started volunteering at the shelter, I realized that they're just like me. They need someone to believe in them. They need someone, it makes me very emotional.
Get it together.
Because they are my friends. And some of them have had childhood trauma, or they just want to talk to somebody about it. I'm not a counselor, but I will lend an ear to you. Some of them have lost all support, and they just want someone to believe in them. And if I can provide that support to them, and thankfully I work at social services, so I'm able to do so, and I have contacts that I can be like, you know what? Let's reach out to this person. Let's take the time for me to get to know you, to help you, and best assist you. They want someone to not give up on them. When I'm up at the shelter, I'm not scared of them. I'm 5'2" on a good day. And, they like to hug. They will say, I love you. They want to hear it back, whether you love them or not. They're very sweet people. And I encourage you to believe in them, whether you're able to come visit them or whether you see them on the street and you just want to say, hi, good morning. That's like probably the nicest thing that anybody could say, is to take the time and say, good morning.
You still have a minute.
Oh. I'm done.
Anybody else want to speak? Yes, Ruth.
Hi, I'm Ruth Young, and I spoke to Michelle a while back about grants and does the government help with grants, and if I remember correctly, you said they don't do it for temporary sheltering, but if we owned our own place, then you would be able to get more funding. Am I correct on that?
So as far as government grants are, the only grants that really have come out are the ones that came out through the pandemic. There are, before that and since then, there really are no grants for low barrier shelters. Most of the federal money is going into permanent supportive housing and to rehab, rehabilitative people that are coming out of rehab and going into housing that way. So that's where a lot of the government grants are going right now. And so we'd probably have to look for private grants, but it really doesn't have anything to do with the fact that we don't have a permanent place. It's just that there's just no grant money out there.
And I'll just reiterate that they're only paid staff with the overnight staff. They are all volunteers, and grant writing is hard.
Yeah.
Especially for governments. Hard. So.
Yeah, then you have to actually.
Yeah. It's a lot of work to write a government grant, yes.
Yes,
But I've done that work plenty of times, and I've offered my help with that as well, so when we're working on some of that. Other questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, I would like to simply close. Do you have anything else you'd like to say?
No, I think that's good.
I'd like to simply close by recognizing that we are all neighbors, and I hope that our community that is unsure of the shelter being in this space feels heard, because we are not trying to silence anybody. We want to work it out for the betterment of everybody, the whole community. And I know that many were not comfortable coming, and I understand that. And I will continue to hear, and I hopefully will, and I will share with Michelle and the shelter staff, and they will no doubt respond as soon as possible. So we keep them in our prayers because we are not in that place. And I thank Usi and those that have said, I don't live here, and if I did, I think I would be a little frightened. I appreciate that honesty. And we need to live into that with our neighbors. On the behalf of the shelter, you guys are doing a great job. I'm sorry you're not paid. On behalf of the church, I am overwhelmed with the support of our elders. They're here tonight, and my congregation, and I am thankful that you guys are in such unanimous and wonderful and spirited support. So, nothing else?
Nope.
I'm going to close with prayer. Let us pray. Lord, you have spoken to us throughout generations, through all sorts of different ways. And as we try to find our voice today, we not only find it for ourselves, but we find that voice for the vulnerable, the invisible, the ill, the rejected in our community. Help us as Warren County and as Front Royal to find real lasting solutions so that we might help people into the next area of life. We ask your Spirit to be on those that are fearful of the unknown. We ask you, Lord, in your grace to be with our guests, and we ask you, Lord, through your Son, Jesus Christ, to just be with each one of us. Forgive us for our failings and encourage us and build us up as the body of Christ together. Through your Son's holy and precious name, amen.